Over 2 years ago, in October 2021, I made the decision to get off of Instagram. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was at the time, but I was really just feeling led to leave the app. And fast forward over 2 years later, I still don't have a personal Instagram account. So I really just wanted to film this video just to share some of the reflections that I've had being off of Instagram for over 2 years now. And it's really not to convince anyone in one way or the other, or even kind of come off in this holier than thou not having an Instagram. No, but I feel like there's just some reflections that I've had over the last 2 years of not having an Instagram account. Some positive and some maybe not as positive. And then I'll end the video answering if I would get back on Instagram after all of this time. But before I dive into the pros and cons that I've experienced, I think we need to go way back by sharing a little bit of my history that I've had with Instagram and why I've consistently had this love-hate relationship with Instagram for the last few years. So growing up, fashion was my thing. For as long as I can remember, it's always been something that has brought me joy. When I was 13 years old, I came across this fashion blog called Style Rookie, which was written by then 12-year-old Tabby Gevinson. And when I discovered her blog, I was so inspired. This girl was 12 years old, she was killing it. And I remember around that time, I was 13 years old, so we were around the same age. And I had just created my own fashion blog on WordPress. And on that blog, I would put together outfits and take pictures of them and do a blog post breaking down the look. I do not even remember how I even had a camera or how I knew how to take the photos or upload the photos. I don't even know how, but that is what I was doing. And this blog was my own secret little thing. I think that it was even a secret from my parents at the time, because when you are a child of immigrants and you're taking photos for a fashion blog, what's that when you should be studying? I had built a little community over on WordPress. I remember having other little blogger friends. I remember even doing a couple of interviews in some other bloggers' pages, just kind of talking about my blog and how I got started, and it was just like a cute little hobby for me at the time. Fast forward, I stopped blogging after maybe a couple years or so. I think I just had lost some self-confidence, so I didn't feel comfortable taking pictures of myself or my outfits anymore. Fast forward even more as Instagram became a thing. Fashion bloggers began using Instagram for fashion blogging, many of them leaving WordPress behind. And ever since I left fashion blogging, it was always this hard toss and tug feeling for me, because I saw how Instagram was allowing people to turn their fashion hobby into something bigger. And I always battled if I should be doing that too, but I just never felt like I could keep up with how fast-paced everything was. So even though I wasn't actively using Instagram to pursue being a fashion blogger or an influencer, my posts just always leaned in that way because they were heavily curated. So my Instagram was never really personal photos out with friends in college. It was really more pictures of my outfits or if I had traveled. So I do remember that I would actively put thought into how my feed would look. And then I was also definitely editing my photos in college. I would use apps that would make my skin look a bit more clear, make myself look thinner. So there were really just many times where I would be posting on Instagram for a season and then I would just get over it, and then I would get maybe overwhelmed of having to plan out posts or thinking about Instagram. There was just a lot of times where I was just like, I don't feel like doing this anymore. Like, this is just a lot. And then I would delete the app. And then also when life was happening, when things were busy, it was like the last thing that I really wanted to do was take photos. Fast forward to 2020 when the pandemic hit. At that point, I had been off of Instagram for a year, maybe a year and a half, on one of my many Instagram hiatuses. But once the pandemic hit, I just craved being back on Instagram and connecting with my friends again. I also felt like my passion for taking pictures was just stirring back up again, and I wanted to be able to use that as a creative outlet. And at that time, I had also started my online vintage shop and was posting photos on that Instagram page. Since I was working on my shop, I was in that creative mood anyways, and also just ended up taking photos for my personal Instagram too. So when I got back on Instagram in 2020, I actually really enjoyed it. I had started being intentional with taking photos again, and it felt great to me having a creative outlet during the pandemic. And as I was just taking photos way more regularly to post on Instagram, a few brands would repost some of the photos that I was taking onto their pages, and it felt like that kind of started happening a lot. And I had even gotten to work with Target, and for the the campaign, I literally just had to post one picture and received a few $100s for that one photo. And it was one of those moments that was really exciting and just felt really dope at the time, considering I really just had a little over 1,000 followers at the time. And in terms of who I followed on Instagram at this time, I really didn't feel like I was following a lot of people, but I started to just feel overwhelmed with how much content was on my feed, and just I would get on the app and just be hit with 5 ways to know that my friend is gaslighting me. It started feeling a little bit exhausting, and I felt like there were some times where I couldn't think for myself. And the funny thing is, I really followed people that I admired, but even with that, even with feeling like I had an intentional selection of people that I was following, it still felt like too much. So even as a Christian and following other Christian influencers and Christian content creators, that felt too much for me. Even as someone who loves fashion, following a bunch of fashion influencers was too much for me. And then I also found that I was just on the app a bunch, using Instagram as a way to fill time. So with all of that, in October of 2021, I said goodbye. I deactivated my personal page, and then I also stopped posting on my business page. I haven't had the app or anything like that. I have gone on my business page's Instagram on the website just a handful of times in the past 2 years, really just to look up a couple of wedding vendors when I was planning my wedding in 2023. But in all, I generally felt led in my spirit to get off, and I had to follow that leading. So with that, let's just get into the pros and the cons that I've experienced since being off the app. I found that when you're off of Instagram, you will really be able to discern and just know who your closest people are. And of course, yes, this is something that should be known without the app, but I feel like being off of the app really just illuminates who your closest and truest friends are. And they will be the ones that you are able to call regularly, text regularly, pick up the phone and just talk. And you'll see that Instagram was never a barrier. Instagram wasn't the thread that was keeping you all connected. And truth be told, it might not be that many people once you're off of the app. I have just a handful of friends who I keep connected with on a regular basis. Despite social media, despite me moving across the state, our relationship transcended well beyond social media, and that wasn't a necessary thing to kind of glue us together. The truth is, social media can kind of give off this illusion that you're just connected to so many people because you're constantly commenting on each other's stuff, you're constantly responding to each other's stories or shooting each other quick little DMs. It can be an illusion because without the app, that might not be there. Or if it is, it's most likely not going to be at the same frequency. Now that I don't have Instagram, the only person that I really compare myself to is myself. For example, I'll remember that I was so on top of working out a few months ago, and that inspires me to get back on track. On Instagram, we all know that it's so easy to compare ourselves to other people because we'll see a picture or we'll see a caption, and some way or somehow it can kind of trigger something to maybe make us feel behind in life or make us feel bad about ourselves. And being off of social media, I really don't experience that anymore. I've come to terms that this is my life. This is the life that the Lord has blessed me with. It's going to be on its own journey. I'm going to have my own timeline. I'm going to do what God is calling me to do at the time in which He sees fit for me to do that thing. So it makes me feel content because I can just be at peace knowing that I am where God has me to be. And of course there are things that I aspire to do in the future that I'm not presently doing now, but all I can do is really work towards those goals and trust in the Lord, and that's really that. But there's something about just being met with so many images that it's so easy to kind of covet something that you didn't even really want. But I've really found that we all have different journeys in this life that we're living, and there honestly isn't even a point to compare, because how can you compare yourself with someone who is on a totally different journey? These last 2 years of being away from Instagram has just been very freeing in this aspect, running my own race and not looking to the left or to the right. And being off of an app like Instagram has personally just helped me to run that race, I feel, a little bit more efficiently, and there's no distraction in that sense. I feel like me being off of Instagram, I have saved hundreds of dollars, maybe even thousands of dollars. And I know that it might sound dramatic or a bit of an exaggeration, but let me explain. In the last couple of years, I feel like I've become significantly less materialistic and significantly more content with the things that I have. In January of 2022, I began this money saving journey, and I feel like I was able to do it really successfully and save a lot of money in these last couple of years without having an Instagram. So for me, Instagram was a temptation when it came to spending money. So being on Instagram for me was just not helpful in that regard, because there were multiple pieces of clothing that I bought on a whim. I remember once that I bought 2 dresses. I bought these 2 dresses off of Instagram. I thought they were really beautiful. I was seeing them everywhere on Instagram, and then of course, suddenly I had to have those dresses. Both of those dresses were each $300. It's not a surprise that that was a waste of money. It was a waste of money because one of those dresses is literally, I wear it now as a house dress. I don't wear it outside. And then the other dress, it's not something I wear all the time that warrants me spending $300 for it. So being off of Instagram has significantly helped me with spending impulsively, because now I really don't buy things off of the whim. If I see something and I like it, I'm not compelled to buy anything immediately. I'm just really not moved as much by things anymore. Also, I found that when you're off of social media, you realize that there's a lot of things you just don't need. And don't get me wrong, I still love clothes, but the discipline I have when it comes to shopping, I feel like it's honestly done like a complete 180, and I don't know if that would have happened if I was going through this journey while still on Instagram. So I feel like I've personally developed even more peace of mind being off of Instagram. I felt like when I was on Instagram, it was just a lot of things being thrown, a lot of opinions, a lot of just information. I feel like I experienced more clarity in my mind. When I removed social media, for me, it was like I was also removing distractions. It felt like it freed up more space in my mind to just process my emotions, think for myself even more. Without all of the noise, I just feel more at peace. Without being on Instagram, I feel like I've been able to just live even a little bit more intentionally, and I've just been able to be in the moment. And honestly, I feel like it's allowed me to really enjoy just my life and just be like, wow, I really have a beautiful life. It can be slow at times, or you know, it's not like I'm constantly always on the move or doing stuff or having new things around, but it's made me really appreciate my life, and that to me is really beautiful. And I think this ties back to the comparison thing, because it's like there's no comparison, you're just now in your life. And I don't know exactly how to articulate this point, but in short, I just feel like I'm able to really enjoy and live my life. And I honestly really love that. And this ties into my last point, and I feel like all of these points are kind of merging together, but another positive is you're really not living for other people. I feel like I lived so much life away from social media in the last 2 years, and none of these life changes were really seeing the light of day on Instagram. I got engaged, I started a new job, I moved back in with my parents for the first time in like 6 years. I got married off of social media, moved out of my parents' house and moved and became a homeowner with my husband. I moved across the state. I experienced, spiritual warfare on some days. In these last 2 years, there were hardships, but then life has been so sweet. When I look back and think what God has brought me through, I'm honestly speechless. I wasn't needing to think about, oh, I need to post this on Instagram. Instagram is really a place for connection at the end of the day, and it's nice to be able to have those interactions. So it's like I completely get it, but it has just been freeing to not have to think about that. So to be honest, even though I really knew in my heart that I needed to get off of the app, one of the biggest things that was deterring me for a few months was because I felt if I get off of Instagram, I'm gonna lose connection to a lot of people. And I won't lie, yes, that is something that I did experience. I did lose connection to a number of people. This can be a painful realization, but when you're off of Instagram, there are gonna be some people that you find that you don't talk to really as much anymore. And I remember I was talking to a friend, telling her how I felt like I was gonna lose connection to people, and she was also talking about how sometimes that connection is a little bit contrived because we're seeing what people are doing on their stories, and it can feel like we know what's going on with them. It can feel like we're so connected to them because you're seeing what they're choosing to put out for you, because you can comment really quickly, so it feels like there's this constant back and forth. But a lot of times it does actually lack that real connection off of the app. For me, there were some people that I talked to on Instagram on a weekly basis. I constantly was seeing what they were up to, they were seeing what I was up to, we would comment on each other's stuff, we would quickly message each other. And then once I got off of the app, there were some people that I literally realized that we hadn't talked in the 2 years since being off of Instagram. You really do have to be intentional to keep certain connections, and you might find that some connections might honestly just fade away because unknowingly Instagram was almost like that thread that was keeping you connected. So something else that I experienced a little bit is at times feeling out of the loop. For me personally, it wasn't really about feeling out of the loop with people or people's lives. It's this feeling of being out of the loop of just certain things that maybe the world is kind of talking about, or different trends that are going on. It's kind of like, oh, I don't know about that, or I haven't heard about that. I don't know who that is. Who is that man? Who is that woman? I don't know. But to be honest, that's not a big deal for me. I feel like I'm okay saying I haven't heard about that, no I haven't seen that movie, or no I didn't know about that, because it is just what it is. If I haven't seen it, I just haven't seen it. And I feel like as it comes to news, there's obviously a lot of other places to get news or current events. Another con that can come out of not being on Instagram is if you are a business owner or have a personal brand that you promote. I find that Instagram can be a really good platform for, a small business or just a business in general. A lot of time when people are looking things up, they tend to go to Instagram. I feel like Instagram is definitely a place that you can grow your business. Thankfully, there are other ways and are other platforms that can be used to promote, but that's just a con that I've found. And I am kind of in the process of relaunching and rebranding my shop, and I do think that I will utilize Instagram again for it, but I want to find someone to help me post on Instagram. And along with the whole promoting your business, I find that if you're also looking for a specific service, a lot of times people showcase their work on their Instagram pages. And like I said, I honestly feel like I was led to get off Instagram, and I feel like it's because this journey that God was taking me on, it was going to be a lot more beneficial for me to just stay focused and just not be distracted and focusing on Him. And when I think about that, I just have a lot of gratitude. I just don't know if I will have a personal Instagram again, and that could change. Literally in 6 months I could change my mind. And sometimes for that connection aspect, I think, oh yeah, that would actually be really nice. But then I also, when I think a little bit deeper into it, then I get a little bit turned off. So that's why I go back and forth. And I really do feel like there is a constructive way to use the app, that it doesn't have to have all of those negative connotations. And I think there's ways to probably use it within limits. And I feel like if I do, there's some serious changes that I would probably make, with maybe taking an even deeper inventory of who I'm following and just keep it really, really small. I would probably also keep the app deleted from my phone unless I was about to post something, and only go on the website but not having the app. And I honestly do feel like it is probably really beneficial for anyone to take a semi-long break from Instagram. Obviously 2 years is a long time, but even if it's like a month, I feel like it's helpful to have these detoxes. I would love to hear if there are any boundaries that you have to keep your relationship with Instagram healthy, or just your thoughts on social media and Instagram in general. And hopefully we can have a little dialogue in the comments about this. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one.